Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's videos. This time we're going to be talking about common insurance questions that we get asked.
So there's a ton of misinformation when it comes to the world of insurance. So Brittany, can you help us demystify some of these crazy things that are said about insurance? So the first one that I've heard over and over and over again is that insurance is crazy expensive. Britt, what do you think?
I've heard that so many times too, and I'll just bring the numbers in. Gen Xers overestimate the cost of insurance by about 119%, and millennials overestimate cost of insurance by about 213%. So it is, on average, quite a bit more expensive than people are thinking at this point, especially if you get term insurance. So term insurance, let's say you have a 20-year term, you pay the same price for those 20 years. So if you're talking about just covering your mortgage, for example, something like that can be perfect because you don't need it longer than that. And then when you're working with a good insurance advisor, they can tier policies and use all these other fancy terms and ways of setting things up to save you money and make sure that the policy is affordable for you. Honestly, if it is expensive for you, because for some people it is, it's probably because you're hard to insure. So it could be, look at one of our other videos on what makes you hard to insure. We've made one of those. But if you have a health history, if you smoke, dangerous hobbies, things like that, they might what's called rate your policy, which means that you're going to be paying a higher rate than the standard rate. But for most people, it's quite affordable.
That sounds like a lot, and it sounds like there's a lot of choices. So for somebody who's completely overwhelmed by all of the choice and options out there, what are the situations there?
Jen, there are a lot of choices. When you sit down with a really good insurance advisor or an insurance broker, they'll be able to look at all of those options, look at all of the information that they have on you based off of what's called a needs analysis, where they gather who you are, what you're like, and then based off of those two bits of information are able to offer you policies and really break down your options for you.
So disability insurance actually is one type of insurance where it is tailored to your occupation and your needs. So that's one where there will be a lot of different options, but your advisor walks you through what you need for your specific situation and what you qualify for based on your occupation, your duties, and your health history. But for life and critical illness insurance, for example, it's a bit simpler. So generally speaking, you're going to be choosing between a term policy and a permanent policy. And then the term will be for whatever is appropriate for your situation. So whether that's 10 years, 20 years, 25 years to age 65, or something in between, if it's offered by the company, then that will be what you're mostly choosing. So it seems like it can get really confusing and overwhelming, especially if your advisor offers you like 10 different choices. But the more questions that the advisor asks to determine your specific needs, then the easier it is for them to narrow down what would be an appropriate product. And, in some cases that could just be based on budget. So I've had people tell me, I don't want to spend more than $30 a month on critical illness insurance, for example. Well, then perfect. Then we'll come up with a couple different scenarios based on the length of the term and how much you think you might want or need, and go from there.
So the term insurance or life insurance is usually associated with an older generation, usually having kids or buying a house. And so a lot of people think that young individuals do not need life insurance. Is that true, or is that just a myth?
So not all young people need life insurance. Life insurance is meant to cover a risk. So the risk being a large expense after you pass away that your family would have to deal with. So for example, funerals, those can be quite pricey. If you're living on your own and you rent an apartment, chances are your family is going to have to rent that out for a little while, do something with your storage. You might have some student loan debts. So not all young people need it, but a number of them do.
We've heard some people are opposed because of the amount of info they think is required. So we've heard from more than one person that they're worried that they're going to be followed around during the underwriting process. But no, there's no one hiding in the bushes to check up on what you're doing, the binoculars or anything. You're not authorizing stalking when you are telling the company that they can obtain information about you. So they're just able to ask you questions. And if they need to, you are authorizing them to check up with your doctor if needed. Any genetic test conducted or any results from a genetic test cannot be used by the insurance company. They can't even ask about it. but they can ask about symptoms and diagnosis and treatment. So that all must be disclosed.
One of the big questions that comes up is savings versus insurance. So is there a better way to go?
Of course, having savings is a great idea, especially an emergency fund. But one thing that I would bring up is how quickly would it take for you to save the amount of money that you would need a life insurance policy to provide? So for example, if your life insurance policy is $200,000, because that's what we've determined you need when you pass away, how quickly are you going to be able to save that money, and how realistic is it for you to be able to save that money? Also, life insurance benefits are tax-free.
Yeah, so here I have an example about that. So if I have nothing saved, for example, and instead of putting money into a life insurance policy, you know, over 20 years, then I'm going to have 20 grand. So I can buy more insurance for $50 a month than $20,000. You know, for $50 a month, I can buy a lot more insurance. Of course, if I don't have an insurance need, then yeah, like obviously I should save the money. But if I have an insurance need, I will never be able to save enough for the insurance need. Like that's the purpose of insurance. Everyone pays a little bit, and then one person wins the crappiest lottery ever. I like how you're both silently laughing.
What about those of us who have insurance through work? Is that sufficient, or do I need more?
Honestly, it depends. So if we're talking about life insurance, let's say, some people get life insurance as an employee benefit. It's possible that it's enough, but it's possible that it's not. So it really depends on your lifestyle. It depends on your debts. It depends on how much coverage and what that coverage is based off of. So it could be certain times your salary, let's say. So when it comes to the life insurance portion, I would absolutely make sure that you sit down with a licensed insurance advisor and get them to do what's called a needs analysis. So they'll take into consideration your income, your expenses, figure out how much money your family and loved ones would need if you pass away, and then let you know if how much you have is going to be enough. When it comes to health insurance, let's say your dental and some of the other benefits that you can get from work, that really depends on what you're experiencing. So if you're finding that it's not quite covering you enough, definitely make sure that you look into health insurance sooner rather than later, because just like you'll hear with disability, life insurance, and most other kinds of insurance, once you already have a condition, you're not going to be covered for it anymore. It's called a pre-existing condition. So if you're concerned that your health insurance isn't going to be enough, make sure that you absolutely talk to a licensed life insurance advisor who's going to be able to figure out how you can modify or add on to that as well. So it really depends on the person, but talking to an insurance advisor will give you a lot of information, and it's totally free.
So with all these myth busters we just did, so we will walk you through the process. We'll let you know what to expect, and depending on your specific situation, we can prepare you for anything that will be required.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's video. We hope that you found value from it. If you're interested in learning about more and you could use some financial tips sent straight to your inbox, make sure that you sign up for our newsletter. You'll find it on our homepage at ironandpearl.ca. We send it out once a month, and it's full of great resources that we've either created or found that we think you're going to find helpful. Thank you so much for watching. We will catch you next week.
It's like, I'm so hilarious, but you're going to silently laugh at my dark, dark joke.
It was a really good one.
Have you not heard about the reverse lottery before?
Oh, many times, but okay. Just the way that you phrased it was just bang on. Especially for like a super dry topic that was like, zing.
We should come up with a song. Remember that our info is general only, and to speak with a professional before taking any action on your situation.
Make sure to check out all our other videos on Instagram, Facebook, our website, and YouTube.